Education, Extension, and Economic Development Committee started, please. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I haven't heard from anyone for public comment, so we will move on to number 4, approval of the June 6th, 2024 Extension, Education, and Economic Development Committee meeting minutes. Do I have a motion? Motion by Supervisor Rosenberg and a second by Vice Chair Pfeifferich. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that passes. Okay. Because of time, we are going to move on to our educational presentations and committee discussions with a request to start with 7D, the update from the UW-Madison Extension. And we'll start with the natural resources if that works, and then we can go to the civil rights review.
Do you want us there or here? There?
Wherever you prefer.
Is it on?
Oh my God. Sorry, I don't know where I'm supposed to be. Okay, all right, I'll stand here. Was someone scroll for me? Are you? Oh, awesome, thank you so much. Well, hi everybody, thank you. Thanks for adjusting a little bit to help me get through some things today. I just wanted to quickly give you guys a little bit of background on what we do in the natural resources part of Extension, which you will occasionally see in our report. I just wanted to give a little background information first. Our program was started about 25 years ago in partnership with DNR and NRCS, so Department of Natural Resources and Natural Resource Conservation Service. And our funding has always come from state and federal grants, so we don't actually have any Marathon County funding as part of our program. So 100% of our work is in service to those grant deliverables, but because you guys invest in Extension, you're getting our services here for free as well. So mostly this is just to give you a heads up of what we're doing, but we of course always welcome feedback on what we're doing. Myself, I'm Chris Tiles. I'm the program manager for the Natural Resource Educator Program. So I oversee a team of 11 educators across the state. But my background's also in forestry, so I do some forestry programming here in the county as well. And I have 2 other educators that work with me here and locally, and that's Anna Mitchell. She's actually out of the Wood County office, and Jen McNelly, who is also out of the Wood County office. And as you see, Anna works more on surface water, and Jen is mostly working on groundwater issues. So let me talk a little bit about what they do. First, let's talk a little bit about some of the issues that we're seeing in Marathon County. As is in the actual strategic plan, the statement, protect and enhance the quantity and quality of potable groundwater and potable surface water supplies. So that's something that has been at the forefront of the strategic plan for a few years. And as you may be aware, the Land Conservation Department office is actually currently updating their groundwater plan, and they're doing some well testing as well. So we're waiting a little bit to see what comes out of that, to see what direction we should be taking some of our work in. And Jen just started with us in, I think, March. So she's still getting her feet under her. The other issue is surface water quantity and quality. And on the map on the right, you'll see Marathon County, and everything that's labeled red is actually considered an impaired water. We have quite the water resources, as if I had to tell you this, in the county. There's 356 rivers and streams and 202 lakes. So there's a huge water resource here. The impairments are generally around phosphorus and what we call total solids, which is soil running off into the water. So we're looking a lot at the affecting land use, what's happening on the shorelands, what's happening on the farms, what's happening in Wausau with urban stormwater as well. So those are the issues that we're looking at. You could forward a little bit. So Jen and Anna are working on several things. One is actually working a little bit with the updates to the groundwater plan. Jen came from Portage County Land Conservation and has quite a bit of experience, so she's bringing a lot of good skills to this plan. And then if you're aware, There's a program through DATCAP, which is the producer-led producer-led grant program, and you have EPIC in this county, which is Oplaine Partnership for Integrated Conservation, a group of farmers on the west side that are doing some really great work, and our educators are helping them strategically think about what kind of outreach they're doing, what are they trying to change, what behaviors are they trying to change, how are they trying to help farmers. And so our educators come from that like adult pedagogical, how do we help people think about changing their knowledge and their behavior. And Anna also was at the Fenwood event recently and will be working with the Fenwood work as well, just getting to the idea of what's a watershed. How does water flow across our land? And how can we influence that and improve it? Thanks. Just some of the outcomes that we think about. So ultimately, we're trying to get at that improved water quality. There are two big plans that are impact how decisions are made in the county, and one is called a 9-key element plan, and another is called total maximum daily load. I didn't want to overload you with acronyms, but those really guide what happens, especially in the land conservation and DNR departments, on how they work with farmers, and so we're essentially trying to work in partnership with DNR and land conservation on that. Increased capacity of watershed and farmer organizations to communicate their stories. We know there are farmers out there doing amazing conservation practices on their land. How do we showcase all the great work that some of those farmers are doing? And then the last is really the basic understanding. If there are weeds in a farmer's field, how are we communicating to other people that what they're seeing is actually no-till or cover crops that are actually improving soil health? So just mentally changing that mental picture as well. But also working with we have a lot of shoreline, so not mowing all the way to the edge of the lawn so that stuff doesn't run off right into our rivers and our lakes. So those are ultimately what we're working towards. On the forestry side, I think this is always just a real shock for people. 47% of the land cover in Marathon County is forested. That's huge. It is about 3,000 family forest owners. That's a really rough number. It's hard to tell that always since people own multiple parcels. The graphic on the right is just showcasing all that blue is the percentage of forest land in the state that's owned by private landowners. I think people have the impression that the county or the feds or the state owns a lot of the forest land in Wisconsin, and it's actually 58% is owned by family forest owners. So that's why we exist, is to help landowners make sustainable decisions for their woodland. And we see that 75% don't have a management plan. So we run classes called Learn About Your Land classes, which are just basic introductions to forestry ideas. Your Land, Your Legacy, we're seeing a lot of land turning over. Next generation is taking it on. Heirs, so how do we set up the next generation to take over woodlands and be ready to take over woodlands financially, knowing how to take care of the woods, so on and so forth. We also know that a lot of women are owning woodlands. Men are passing away first, so the women are taking it over. And we want to give them the skills to figure out how to make decisions. We actually, the picture on there is a chainsaw class that we run for women so that they can figure out, what do I do with my hair if I'm running a chainsaw? I know, like, we get men asking us why we have classes for women, because men don't have to deal with ponytails and different clothing. So it's a different way of operating. We are working with landowners right now to get them connected with a forester to get a free management plan for their woodlands. That's a project we're working on with the Forest Service and with DNR. And then last, we have a farm forestry initiative. So we know a lot of woodlands occur on farmland. They're less used for recreation and more like, how can we actually use those for an income source? So we're talking about agroforestry and maple syrup as well. So our website is on there where most of our events are. And there, we're really trying to get landowners to understand why it's important to work with a forester, increasing their confidence in making decisions to improve their land. DNR has foresters that do free walkthroughs with landowners, so we're trying to make landowners aware of that, and actually also understanding why a management plan is useful to them. I had some questions for you. I know that I'm going to be quick, so I just have my contact information on there. But my question for you all was, what aspects of water and forestry define Marathon County for you? If you're driving around, you live in Marathon County for a reason. What do those resources mean to you, and how do they make the county feel like home to you? And then what issues do you see related to water and forestry in the county? And again, we're always looking for feedback on what we're doing and how we're doing it, as they can serve some of the expectations that we have in our funding. So my contact information is actually on the next slide. So to spare you from making this meeting too long today, feel free to reach out to me. My office is down on River Drive, and so I'm happy to talk with anybody if you have questions. So thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for Chris? Supervisor Rosenberg?
Yeah, do you, 58% of the land is privately owned? By privately owned, I'm thinking individuals or farms or something. Is that really the 58%,
Yes.
or are there companies or something that own some of it?
Actually, that is a separate, which of course none of us are going to be able to see here. Private industrial tends to incorporate some of that more, the people who are investing in it and investing in timberland versus actual like family forest or individuals owning it. So yeah, we're actually not seeing as much of the investment properties around forestry and natural resources anymore. And a lot of those lands have been divided and subdivided into family forest owners.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? I actually have a question for you. With your water quality testing, do you have any tests that you do that indicate amounts of aluminum, barium, or sulfur dioxide or anything like that in the water in addition to your phosphorus that you're finding most?
So the phosphorus, what I was looking at is actually when there are certain pollutants that the DNR looks for and that the EPA looks for. And when water is listed as impaired, it's because it has been identified through other tests. So we're not actually doing the testing. This is a federal designation that's given to those streams at that time. DNR does do some water testing. We have a program called WAVE, Water Action Volunteers, which volunteers can do surface water testing on streams. There's also a lake program where lake volunteers do testing. And that data actually all goes into a DNR site called SWIMS. It doesn't mean much, but it's surface water. It's essentially a surface water database. So anybody who's doing collecting of surface water information, it goes onto that site, and that can be found. That's publicly available. We also do have the well water testing program that's out of UW-Stevens Point, and they also collect that information and have it online, so you can see if people have tested for other chemicals as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else? Anyone? No? All right, then we'll move on to the civil rights review.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for moving us up on the agenda. Before I get into civil rights, I want to do a quick introduction of Melissa Ulrich, our new regional soils educator. So some of you might remember the process we went through to identify moving to regional ag ed positions. So we're happy to have Melissa on board working both in Marathon and Clark County. So this is the first time we've had a crops and soils educator in Marathon County in a long time. So we're happy to have Melissa on board. And then real briefly, the civil rights process, I just wanted to let you all know that this extension occasionally goes through federal civil rights reviews because we receive federal money. And we also go through an internal civil rights review process that rotates every 3 to 5 years to cover each of the counties in the state. And this is here in my area to go through that process. So we're kind of just starting that. We'll actually do the review this fall. And this is the internal one. And it doesn't really change anything we do. It's basically an internal check to make sure we're working hard to reach underserved audiences, making sure all of our materials are accessible, and all the things that we do for that. But it is a focus of what we'll be doing over the next several months as the educators prepare for that. So if something comes up, people hear about kind of the civil rights review, that's what it is. It's an internal process that we go through to prepare for an eventual federal civil rights process. So other than that, I think that's all of our updates, but if you have questions, happy to take those.
Great, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move on. We will go back to 7A, Regional Economic Threats presentation by Dave Ekman from Greater Wausau Regional Chamber of Commerce.
Grab a mic. Thank you. I've been working with Chair Marash on some relevant economic development topics, and we talked about me coming to this meeting. Now, I was on vacation last week, and I didn't have my ability to get my information pulled together here in time with respect to your policies, but I'm here to talk about. So I have nothing to show you, but I'm going to send you a long 3-hour link to the summit, which you should all watch. Absolutely should all watch. Okay, so but I'm gonna dive in here a little bit. Just ran a little bit of a report. First, I'm Dave, President and CEO of the Greater Wausau Chamber of Commerce. I've been in this area, this region, since 2005 doing this work. I started with the Workforce Development Board, 9-county region. And I'll touch a little bit on that. Chair Gibbs asked me to talk a little bit about the Workforce Development Board in his absence here. He's in Washington, apparently. So workforce development, economic development, I ran McDevco for 6 years when it was part of the chamber. And then I went to the university, UWSP. I was a special assistant to the chancellor for economic development. And then I came back here as president and CEO in 2016. So I've been doing this. I'm going to head into my 9th year, board willing. So just want to share a few things. So before I jump in, just ran a quick overview report. About 140,000 right now in Marathon County, 140,000 people. Total regional employment for the county is 77,320. Had a medium household income of 73,200. And that we're about 2,000 underneath the national average for median income. Jobs decreased by 810 over the last 5 years here, but are projected to grow by 984 over the next 5 years. That's not setting any records by any means. And then population grew by 3,500 over the last 5 years and projected to grow another 3,500 over the next 5 years. So that's really a snapshot. I can get those reports for you anytime you want those. You let me know if you ever want an economic overview report. Say, Dave, can you run a report? Boom, I'll have it to you within an hour. Okay? So let's get into this a little bit. I want to get a little bit of context. So the challenges facing Greater Wausau and the Marathon County region. As things stand now, rural Wisconsin counties lack the people, workers, and jobs required to revitalize local economies and strengthen community development. We lack the people, workers, and jobs required to revitalize the local economies and strengthen community development. Recent survey we just ran, we asked our member employers what their greatest challenges are. And right now, 78% of them said, we don't have enough people. We don't have enough people to work in our companies. The others then that followed were regulatory environment and just the economy, overall the challenges that are in the economy. So those big three issues. So when we talk about rural areas in Wisconsin, more than half the state's counties cover 63% of its land mass. So rural areas in Wisconsin include more than half of the state's counties and cover 63% of its land mass, but contain only 16% of the state's population. 63%, only 16%. So I'll pause here, and when we look at the Greater Wausau region, Marathon County, here we are, the Wausau MSA. It's Marathon County, Portage County, Wood County, as designated by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's our MSA, Metropolitan Statistical Area. We're not growing by leaps and bounds. In fact, if we're not growing to the extent we need to be with our companies and in the demand on the public good, we're shrinking. Our challenge is here, we are surrounded by counties that are rapidly declining in population, people and companies. So here we sit as a talent desert in central Wisconsin. Meanwhile, Green Bay to Milwaukee, Milwaukee to Dane County, and then up towards Eau Claire, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Those are more dense with people, business and industry, and they're growing. They're pulling people out. My kids, they pulled out of here. They're in Madison. Continues to happen. So it really outlines what's going on. We're getting older, and the data will tell you that. We already are, especially in Marathon County, facing eroding tax bases that support the public good. And then we're having more difficulty. We have access to health care, but is it becoming affordable? No. And the reason being is because we have an older population that's become more dependent on Medicare and very low reimbursement rates to our healthcare providers. There's some that are even willing to say, we don't want Medicare patients anymore. That's a federal issue. But we have to deal with that. Total individuals in the labor force, ages 25 to 54. The rate at which Wisconsin is losing prime age workers increased dramatically between 2010 and 2022. So about Wisconsin between 2011 and 2021 lost more than, and this was Wisconsin, 135,000 workers, okay? What we're experiencing here in Marathon County is really at the root base of rural Wisconsin, and we're really at a strategic disadvantage just because of our geographic location, our aging population, and the ability to move where people want to go. And that's especially pronounced now after COVID. Percentage change in total age population 25 to 54. This is from the 2010 census to estimates of 2022. The number of prime age workers has declined in 70 of Wisconsin's 72 counties. For Marathon County, we've declined between 6.1 to 9%. It's a negative 6 to 9. Mortality, outmigration, and just not reproducing. We're not having enough kids here. And then when it comes to the region, ahead of us, who's aging faster? Langley, Lincoln, then Marathon, then Portage, and then Wood. So we're all aging really fast here in Marathon County. Probably it's faster. It only gets faster when you go up north, when you start hitting the northern county area from Pembine over to the Minnesota border. So essentially, I've laid a bit of context here. These numbers are real. Jim Wood at Competitive Wisconsin. Mark O'Connell is also, you're familiar with Mark, Counties Association. Mark is involved with Competitive Wisconsin Incorporated. And the Be Bold initiative that Jim Wood and the Competitive Wisconsin group are taking forward is really identifying the challenges facing rural Wisconsin. So they've got about 8 different accelerators that they're looking at and that they've done. And I'm going to talk about the first one real quickly, expanding broadband. I want to thank you, County Board. You have invested tremendously in taking the ability where you had those ARPA monies to help invest in broadband. Thank you very much, because it's critically important to rural Marathon County. The second is early childhood care and education. Healthcare services energy, workforce housing, workforce recruitment and retention, transportation, and then rural resurgence. How does a community like the greater Wausau region, Marathon County, how do we fight against what's coming at us? I'll tell you right now, you'll see it in the summit video at the closing. We have to be all in, all of us. We can't be stepping back from these challenges. We got to lean in to these challenges together. Strong public-private partnerships. It's about competing. We compete, as much as you may not think, we compete against Stevens Point, we compete against Green Bay, Milwaukee, Waukesha, Eau Claire, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Chicago, Nashville, Tennessee. We are in that competitive nature. I don't care how big you are, how small you are. Gen Xers, Ys, not Xers, but Ys and Zs, millennials, they're going where there's opportunity, vibrancy, our future. And that's why you see the things that we're working on here, what critically important, are the vibrancy of downtown, what we're trying to get done at Granite Peak, Rib Mountain, in terms of transforming greater Wausau region into Wisconsin outdoor recreation mecca. There's no other place in the state of Wisconsin that can claim that. You folks are working on the water, which is a critically important natural resource. We are blessed with a river. We have geographic features here that give us a competitive advantage. But we really need to work together and understand Wausau is your county seat. It's our county seat. County government has a role in making sure we have a vibrant Wausau and vibrant communities on the outside. Now, when I just want to jump into briefly an area that I'm working with Chair Marash on, early education, early care, and education. I've been doing this work for a long time, and when I look at this data and what Jim Wood has presented, it scares the hell out of me. It used to be where we were worried about having to attract businesses and doing what we call smokestack chasing, trying to bring companies here. And now, with everything going on, post-recession, Great Recession, and then COVID, the dynamic of the world has just absolutely changed. Where people making choices where they want to be, why they want to be there, quality education, healthcare, things for their family, childcare. I have never seen such a threat and I've been working with educators through the region, 9 counties. I've never seen such a threat with K-12 education, where our communities, even here in Wausau and Everest, and then in the rural communities, are not able to attract and retain teaching talent. Challenged. We cannot, this is a challenge, we cannot allow communities in our county to come to a point in time where they have to close their schools or consolidate. I've seen it. It's the life breath of a community, your K-12s. We got to pay attention to it. That means we here in our county, we have to be the advocate in Madison, in the federal government. I talked to Tom Tiffany about this because if we think we got it bad here, he's got his district up north has it a lot worse. This stuff is insidious, you guys, meaning it crawls below the surface and just eats away. And then all of a sudden, I had this conversation with the business. We don't want to become former Brokaw. I was there when that happened. Brokaw doesn't exist anymore. Village of Maine. These things are coming at us, and we need to work together. The summit, Jim Wood presented his data that he collected over 2 years throughout the state of Wisconsin. Dennis Winters, the chief labor economist for the state of Wisconsin, he laid all the data out in the facts that we're shrinking fast, and when that happens, your tax base erodes and your public good begins to diminish. Public good, parks, roads, water. The things, we're actually seeing some of these things right now. I see them in the education system. The universities, you're going to be dealing with that at some point, like every other county is that has a county, hopefully in a good way, in being proactive. But it's there in front of us. And then healthcare is another a big one that we have to be paying attention to, especially as we're aging here in this region. Are we going to be able to we got great providers. There's been a shift with Marshfield yesterday, with Sanford coming in from the Dakotas to partner with them to bring them back up. But then you got Spirus. But it goes to, again, if we're aging, as we are, it goes to that Medicare reimbursement. So with that, the last thing I wanted to talk about was the Workforce Development Board. Chair Gibbs and I sit on the Workforce Board. It's kind of ironic because that's where I started in my career after we moved here from Rib Lake and I got in the workforce system. Now I'm on the board, and it's a great organization. It's really funded as a private entity from Department of Labor dollars and whatnot, and then DWD. And Workforce Development Boards, there's 9 of them actually in the state. This is WDA 6. All county chief elected officials, that's the chief local elected official, what they call CLEO, they all sit on the board. And so Kurt is on the board. He's an active board member, ensuring that Marathon County is well represented. Where's it going? Well, now, after the pandemic, I should say, after the Great Recession and now the pandemic, the economic environment has changed. What we are finding, and it comes out in our survey, is that workforce development, an integral part of being able to move people up in life, where they can realize economic gain and envision their dreams for economic prosperity and independence. Those things go on all the time. We've got a great board here, very active with that. NTC is very active in that partnership. The chamber is. We work on that with NTC and the board. And there's other economic development. Kim's doing it too. So at McDevco. So Kurt asked me to talk about that a bit. It's very relevant, especially in these changing times. I can tell you one of the things that's coming fast and furious, you're reading about it, you're living it, artificial intelligence, right? It's coming, it's here. And there's opportunity in it. The fear that we have that it's gonna replace everything, no, it's not. It's being able to embrace it, learn it, and how to use it. And that is a transition process with workforce development right now that's taking place. The tech is leading in that. The university is helping in that as well. We're creating something here for the future, and I'm happy to come back when I know it's set in stone to outline it for you. That's going to give us, when I say us, Wausau Greater Marathon County, a competitive advantage. We're going to be ahead of this and be part of the front end of the change. Chair, I'm going to pause there. I wish I had some pictures to show you, but I am going to send you the summit recordings.
Sounds good, thank you, and I appreciate you ending on a positive note. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Supervisor Rosenberg?
You said there's a shortage of people, and that's almost everywhere. Is that largely a talent shortage or a shortage of people, period?
Both. So, good question. So when we talk about the 77% that I was talking about, 78% of employers not having enough, 60%, because we drilled down a little bit on that question, 60% of the employers are having trouble hiring those with qualifications and skills, okay? So you're finding a lot of companies here are trying to recruit from outside of our region, right? And it's either going to be through pay or different ancillary benefits that are going to bring them here. The skiing, the biking, the hiking, the water, all matter in this quality of life now. But to your point, there has to be a development and upgrading of talent to get to what we call Industry 4.0 advanced technologies. Tech's kicking butt on that.
I think you said the average income, excuse me, the median income was 73.3.
73,000, yeah.
Did you, do you have the average income?
That's median household income. I would have to go through my data. No, I'm happy to get it to you if I just got to remember it, write it down, and get it for you.
I was just curious.
I believe it's this. Don't hold me to it, but I believe it's right at about 52,000.
That's a pretty big difference.
So for you're talking about individual, right?
No, I'm talking the same number you were using. Average household income is
Okay, so that's
median.
73,000, right? Typically meaning that's a two salaries. Typically, I mean, I can drill down to what one person on average makes in Marathon County. It's totally different.
I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for the difference between the median household income and the average household income.
I can find that out for you.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Healthcare costs, you mentioned, they're high here and they're high across Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Why are the healthcare places struggling? It's not matching up, but I understand Medicare is stingy, but.
Well, that's part of it. But what you're talking, we're in a labor shortage. The cost of labor has skyrocketed. I don't care what business you're in. You can be in retail. You can go to Quick Trip now you go back 6 years ago, they're paying $9 an hour. Now they're paying $16, $17 an hour. Same with manufacturers. They've gone from a very, in terms of a 14, 15, they're up at 22 now. Healthcare is no different. In fact, it's more because of the skill level that's taking place and the shortage of healthcare workers, that a lot of those workers are pulling themselves out of their community and becoming traveling professionals around the country, making more money to do that. Everything in business are your cost of goods. Labor's your biggest cost of goods, and then your benefits that go to support labor. That's what's accelerating a lot. And then you have advancing technologies too. So in advancing technologies in healthcare, you invest in this, and then 6 months later, it's better, and you're going to invest in this. And it's because of the expectations and demand of the public that we want the best healthcare possible. We've got great healthcare systems. We really do. We're blessed with them here. When you think about where we're at, points north, here we are in Wausau. And everything to the north of us is an aging population with increasing demands in healthcare services. They're not going to create all these high, rich centers of healthcare. In fact, they're shrinking. Rib Lakes Clinic is closed. Everything's being consolidated here, meaning a lot of people will be coming here for services. But again, it goes to technology, advancing, cost of labor.
One more thing, an observation, I guess. You said schools are having trouble attracting talent, but I think we're reaping what we sowed 12, 14 years ago when we cut budgets in schools and to lower taxes, and now you're not graduating the teachers, and you're not getting them to stay in the profession. They can do better elsewhere with a 4-year degree. That's a state level thing. But we did it to ourselves.
If we're going to fix it, is that part of it? You're not wrong. You're not wrong. There's a lot. I talked to my daughter's a teacher, and she's going to leave the profession. She's a special education teacher, and she's right where she should be. And I hate that she's going to leave, but she just cannot manage her life and what she wants to do and get rid of student debt. She just can't do it. She's leaving. We have to fix it in Wisconsin. This is going to be a national issue. I guarantee it. I talk to my friends around the country. Rural education is under threat. Artificial intelligence isn't going to, it's going to be part of it, but it's not going to be what we need because we have this human engagement that's really necessary in the classroom. We all got to work on it. We have, folks, we got a collective voice in rural Wisconsin. The numbers that I've outlined here, there's power in people. If we're gonna reshape what our opportunities are in rural Wisconsin, we have to fight collectively down in Madison and in Washington. I'm with you. I hear you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Supervisor Lemmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. A little bit of a buzzkill, I will say. And I can't help but think, you know, you mentioned 2010, things started to really sag. That seems like a pivotal time when some decisions were made through the UW system to take our two-year center and really take it away from a feeder school to Madison. That's slowly been eroding away. And I wonder, first of all, what role you think that might have had in having some of our youth leave quicker because they no longer can stay here to build their educational base and then transfer down to Madison. And then I guess I'm wondering what your specific ask is of us, because this seems like there's somebody that needs to orchestrate meetings between the public and private, and we need a mission or a vision that's pulling in the same direction. I'm not 100% sure we have that. And how do we get there?
We don't. But let me go back to your question. So when Ray Cross made that move, what's happening today is it's not because of what happened in Madison and the decisions that were made by Ray to adapt the colleges. It was well on its way. When I say this, because I studied it. When I got my doctorate in higher ed leadership, I studied this, the role of the UW system in economic development. And essentially, technology has shifted everything. When anybody who went to school here could go to Madison, they could go to any other university as well. That's still present. It's still present. It's just different. They can go to Madison. They can. They can go to Point. They can go to Oshkosh. They can go to Milwaukee. They can go to Eau Claire. The choices are still there. Those are still in place. But what you have is you now have choices. Student debt is incredible. I see my daughter dealing with it, and we're trying to help her deal with it. You're seeing the technical college just thrive right now because you see it. You can walk out of the technical college with a certificate and you're making six figures in HVAC. You're making six figures. Zero debt. Higher ed's changing. It's changing all over the world, and it's technology now. The pandemic really it changed it dramatically because everything went remote. You won't find a bigger champion than me in economic development, in higher ed, in education. No, it's very relevant. But the model for higher education and universities, it needs to shift fast. And they're trying. Tom Gibson is an awesome chancellor. They're trying. Jay Rothman, they're trying. See, universities, in its commonplace, universities are the aircraft carrier. In order to turn an aircraft carrier, it takes miles. A tech college can pivot really fast and turn really fast, more nimble. It's part of we have to rethink how our post-secondary systems operate, how they collaborate is really important, very important. Now to your vision, my question, actually, I've put it in front of the mayor and the council, and I would ask the same of you. As elected officials, I know I laid out a pretty dour future, but the data says so, and we're living it. My question to you, and I'm there with you, we will work with you, but what's your vision? What is your vision? What's this board, not just this committee, but what's this board's vision for Marathon County and what we want to look like, how we want to compete, what our rural communities look like, how Athens grows, how an Edgar grows. Athens is just an awesome community, just taking ownership of what's in front of them. That's going to require all of us to work together to create that vision. It's just not us, it's all of us. So what I hear is the opportunity to pull together a visioning session. City's got to do the same thing. Rib Mountain, same thing. Weston, Schofield. Was there one other question?
Just who's going to be the coordinator to get that going?
Yeah. I've been doing some research. I'll get to you in a minute. I've been doing some research. We're a Chamber of Commerce. Chambers of Commerce are intended really to serve their membership and the business community to ensure things are good, to do good business. Right now, we do not have a full enabled Economic Development Corporation. We do not. An EDC, like a Washington County Economic Development Corporation. We need that. It's something to discuss. You know, we had this conversation at my executive committee yesterday just talking about strategy. It's one of the pieces in the gearbox that's missing, a big piece. Big. County plays a role in that.
Supervisor Hagan?
Yes, I just want to make a comment because what you're saying is some of the stuff I saw years ago. I moved here from western Minnesota in 1994. And my home area, my school district, I had 20 in my graduating class in 1973. Okay? Before that, by 7th grade, they were talking about merging with another school. It never happened. My school closed at my 17th class reunion after merging partially with a neighboring community. My wife's district, 8 miles away from where I was raised, built a new school in the middle of a 50-mile diameter and merged 5 schools together. And K-9 through 12 was in there at first. Within 3 years, 7 through 12 was in there, and then they started shutting down the smaller schools in the surrounding communities. Okay, that process happened west of there a lot further, and the school basically was about empty at this time.
Yep.
So I'm seeing some of that here, especially west of my community in Spencer, with the school districts trying to figure out how to work together.
Yeah.
And I don't see a lot of success in the working together.
Yeah.
I think they need to work a lot more together. First, combining administrations, doing some stuff to keep their stuff going as long as they can. But declining enrollment and declining people is not going to help no matter what.
Right.
And I don't think we can keep throwing tons of tax money at that kind of a system.
You don't have taxpayers to do it. They're shrinking.
Correct.
Did you take Betty's spot? Are you in Betty Knowles? Awesome. She was a great lady.
And another quick story, when I was living in Minnesota, there was communities in eastern South Dakota. They built schools in the process so that they could be quickly converted to elderly living centers as they entered that phase. They were built and designed to turn them over for people to rent apartments out of.
Yeah,
What a beautiful concept.
yeah.
And I don't see that happening either.
Could.
Yeah.
Forward-thinking, right? Yeah, I don't know if you, Shooties, when they built their plant out in Rothschild, where they build homes inside, they built that with the intention that if that ever had to be shuttered, it could be turned into a little mall.
Yeah.
See nursing homes over in Western being converted into apartment complexes.
And the first phase of my wife's home district, school district, I was working in that area. And the first phase of that movement was 2 towns went together and they formed a new school name and everything else. And the parents were absolutely livid against the whole thing. What was the primary reason?
Athletics.
Absolutely. It wasn't the education of the kids, it was athletics. The kids were just loving it. All my nephews and nieces, oh, this is great. Everything's wonderful. Talk to the parents, they're all complaining. So it's a different process. And I just don't know how to fix all of that. You know, I
It's
see what's
complex.
happening. Yeah.
It's complex, absolutely complex, and it is a team sport.
Yep.
It is all of us.
So that was just a comment I wanted to make because I see what you're talking about, but I saw it years ago.
Yeah.
It's getting here, and you know, west of my community in Spencer, there's a lot of Mennonite communities, and they homeschool and school their own kids, and they were buying up farms right and left when I was working in that area.
Where were you in Western Minnesota? Just curious, where were you?
Near Alexandria, Minnesota, western
Yeah,
side.
okay. Great city. Been there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Supervisor Rosenberg.
Just one more thing. I've been hearing, and I can't remember which state department, but I know I've been to lectures 35, 40 years ago. They were talking about exactly the same thing. Your daughters are moving to Minneapolis, and we're getting old.
Yeah.
And we have done apparently not much to address that, so that you're here ringing the alarm again, or still ringing the alarm maybe. But there, like was said, there's got to be a plan, and there's got to be some deliverables on it.
That's the beauty of what Jim Wood has done with the competitive Wisconsin, the Be Bold. We have to. We are at a very pivotal time in Wisconsin, rural Wisconsin, that if we do not pull together and set a vision and hold our lawmakers in Madison accountable to what we need here and what other communities in Wisconsin, besides the Fox Valley, Milwaukee, and Madison, what the rest of us need here, we need to go to work. And that, we got to get through the morass we have between the governor and the legislature. We got to find that, what we call the sane center, meet in the middle, and get to the best solutions. It's not easy. Change is hard. People hate change. I love it myself, but people don't like change.
Okay, any other questions or comments? No? Well, thank you very much for all of that. Go ahead.
I'm ready to go. You want to have further discussions on this? Let's do it. Let's go. Let's go create a better future for our county, for our community. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. We will move on to 7B, updates from Marathon County Historical Society.
We're going up, yeah. Dave, thank you.
And Chair Marash, if I can kick it off, Blake and Russ are going to come up here and talk to you. But again, just a little bit of context. This is one of the organizations that is funded annually through a performance contract that is funded through the annual budget. So we try to give the opportunity for those groups to come here, and thank you to Blake and Russ for doing that, to talk through kind of what it is that they do, generally speaking, but also, you know, as Dave was alluding to, how do you have that placemaking and what's that public-private partnership? This is one of those. This is a public entity, the county, partnering with a private nonprofit, the Historical Society. So you guys take it away. I'll give the keys here. The mic is on, and you can just scroll through your presentation, which is in your packet. Mic is on. So you're all
That's wonderful.
This mic is set, so you're all good.
Do you want to do intro or do you want me to go straight into it?
I'll go straight. That's okay. So I use this one. Yeah, that works. So just to segue a little bit on Dave Ekman's presentation, just a little bit of a bright spot here. As Dave was talking, I was thinking about our talent that we have. We now have one full-time executive director, and I'll get to Blake in a moment. But of our 14 part-time employees, our front office, and these are all young people, our front office manager who has graphic design skills relocated to Wausau to work at MCHS. Our docent for the Yawkey House Museum, and who is a jack of all trades, relocated from Green Bay to work at MCHS. One of our historians, Ben Clark, who is a rock star in history, is a local guy who stayed here and also got his master's degree in public history while he's been working for us. And Blake is a Wausau West graduate who has stayed here and actually got his college degree in marketing while he was working for the River District here. So hopefully that's a little bit of a bright point. So our longtime executive director, Mary Forer, had a career at MCHS of 18 years as our executive director. She was with us before that as our librarian. She had a wonderful career. She retired. That was about 2.5 months ago. And we are very, very fortunate to have landed Blake. We lured him away from the River District to work for us. And we're very excited. We think Blake is going to take us to the next level in terms of our membership, our revenues, our visibility across the state of Wisconsin. Let me just briefly mention the contract that we have. It's in your packet, I believe, and I mention it just to reiterate that when we wrote that document, we wrote it with the understanding that every 2 years there's an election and that there would be new people coming onto the board, coming onto committees, and who may well might have never had previous service before. So within the four corners of the document is the whole history of the relationship between MCHS and Marathon County in very clear language. So please feel free to read that. The four obligations that we have, we're obligated to do 5 programs coordinated through the public library outside of the greater Wausau metro area. In other words, Mosinee, Hatley, Stratford, Athens, etc. Second is 10 programs also coordinated through MCPL that are within the greater Wausau metro area. Number 3 is to add Marathon County records to our online searchable database that is freely available to the public. And number 4 is to continue to pursue options for digitizing original Marathon County records that are stored in our archives. And the latter two are massive, ongoing, labor-intensive, time-consuming projects that we have. So now I'm going to turn this over to Blake to tell us about our numbers. And at the end of the year, actually at the beginning of the year, we meet with Lance Leonard and go over the numbers, and then we come back in the summertime and report to you. Blake's going to tell us about our activities during 2023.
Excellent. Thanks, Russ, and thank you all for allowing us the opportunity to speak to you today. So as Russ mentioned, my name is Blake Opal-Wachowski, just settling in here at the Marathon County Historical Society, just finishing week number 10. So this is actually a great work for me to wrap my head around what the organization does and report to you guys as well. So as Russ just mentioned, one of our obligations is getting out to our public libraries. And that's this first slide here talks about we had 68 programs in the Marathon County Public Libraries with various topics, including the communities listed there on that slide. We did take WASA out of this equation on this slide, just so you can see how comprehensive it is as far as us getting out there into the other communities within Marathon County. A breakdown of our visitors through the county is there on the bottom left for you. And then over on the right-hand side, we have the Little Red Schoolhouse program, which we are in charge of programming that each year. Very exciting. As you can see here, it's a pretty well-rounded representation of children in fourth grade classes from around the county that do come to take part in that day-long education series. In total, we had 63 Little Red Schoolhouse sessions in 2023. Some of the services that we do provide, I'm going to try keeping this a little bit more concise and brief because I know we're limited on time, but we do traveling trunk show presentations, school presentations, school visits to both the Woodson Historical Center and the Yawkey House across the street. If they catch it on a lucky day, they get to tour the Railroad Museum downstairs as well. Of course, the Little Red Schoolhouse visits. The branch library and assisted living programs, which that seems to be increasing, which is wonderful. The traveling rural electrification exhibit, the exhibits that also include the communities across the county. Of course, virtual programming that has been consistent since the pandemic. That's been on all of our social media channels and on our YouTube page as well. And then, of course, doing those research services both in person, and we do take requests as well. I'll have some numbers on that here in a second. And then historic preservation assistance. I'm not going to read every single one of these off, but we do strongly believe in partnerships and collaborations as it not only helps us out, but also our partners and amplifies the impact of the work that we do. So as you can see there, this is in your packet as well if you want to take time and look over those partnerships and collaborations. Do just want to touch on here, we do great things as far as economic impact and education, but also increasing the quality of life for our residents and also as a tourist destination. We are currently number 4 on TripAdvisor, ranked for the museums in the area for the Yawkey House Museum. Sorry for attractions. For museums, we're ranked number 2 for the Yawkey House Museum, number 5 for the Woodson Historic Center or History Center, and number 6 for the Marathon County Historical Society as a whole. We strongly believe in lifelong learning. This is one fact that I do want to point out as it was a huge increase compared to our 2022 numbers. We served 27,452 people last year, which was a 25% increase compared to the previous year, which is absolutely fantastic. Really shows how we're taking the organization and the impact we're serving. Further breakdown there as far as the people we're directly servicing, the virtual programs, our children. I already mentioned the Little Red Schoolhouse there, so that is the total amount of fourth graders that came through, the 1,394 fourth graders. And we do believe in making things accessible to our public, so we did host 128 free programs and events provided to the community. 52 of those were virtual programs over at the Marathon County Public Libraries, and then 3 free exhibits. Again, just talking about we're here to serve any age. I kind of like the 8 to 80 approach and anything in between, but of course even younger and older on that as well. So just a list here of some of our programs that we do offer. We also do have clubs that utilize our facilities as well. So the Bring Your Own Book Club, the Civil War Book Club. So I'll let you read those over, but various amounts of different programs and events that we host year round. And do just want to plug, we do have Kids History Day coming up, and we are prepping for the cemetery tours in fall. Now, digital presence. As Russ mentioned, I do have my marketing degree, so this is definitely within my wheelhouse. I love this marketing stuff. So social media, we have over 6,400 followers on Meta, so both Facebook and Instagram, which is a 20% increase from last year. So we are growing our online presence. We do regular posts highlighting stories, the people and artifacts throughout Marathon County. And On the website side, we are recognized by the Wisconsin Historical Society for excellence of our web presence. If you have been on there, it's very easy to go in and do your own personal research on the website, as well as having all of our listings for our events and programs that we offer as well. That key number I want to point out, last year alone, we digitized 25,000 documents, historic documents, that is now accessible for the public to view at any time. Just as far as a destination, I do want to point this out too, being the Marathon County Historical Society, not only do we serve our county residents, but we are a destination, just like the TripAdvisor stats showed us. 70% of our visitors actually come from outside Marathon County, and there's the breakdown there for you. 30% is within the county itself, 33% is from outside Marathon County, and 37% of the folks that do visit are from outside of Wisconsin itself. A little bit of breakdown on our funding here. So we do like being open and transparent with this. This is our annual contribution that we get from the county. And as you can see, we do take that funding and we give you a return on that investment. We're able to then enter that into our general expenses and the Yawkey House Museum. And then, of course, return that with the impact of our services that I've been mentioning. I'm going to pass things back over to Russ now to talk about some of the exciting news that we released yesterday, but Russ will give you some more details here.
All right.
Do you want the mic?
Sure. Let me just mention one thing. This is sort of a repeat of what I said last year, except I'll do it a lot quicker and I won't numb you with numbers the way that I fear I did last year. But we came up with just some artificial, hypothetical thought experiments as to how we talk about value that we convey, because we don't charge for what we do. I mean, you do have to buy tickets to take the Yawkey House Museum tour, but other than that, we don't charge for what we do. So we just looked at several items. We looked at that our cost of maintaining original records of Marathon County, as well as other records that have a direct tie to the other cities, to the villages and the township. And it's a very large proportion. So if we just took that as a proportion of our cost of storage, that's a $74,000 number. We have an outstanding annual exhibit at the Wisconsin Valley Fair, which is a star of the exhibit hall there. And that, the put up, the repair, the refurbishing, the creation of a new exhibit, the takedown, that is a project. And that's about an $11,000 number. The value of the Little Red Schoolhouse for the fourth graders from outside of Wausau, we said conservatively, could anybody else put that on for less than $1,000 for a session there? We don't think so. So that was a $22,000 value number. The value of our virtual programs that relate to a topic that is, throughout the county. For example, a topic on Hatley or a topic on Athens. We put an average value of about $1,000 for those virtual programs, and that came to about $13,000. And then we said, if our viewers from outside of Wausau go onto our website just one time and find one record, and it's, an aha, wow, that's what I was looking for. And is that worth $2 to do that? Well, that was a $19,000 item. So if you add it all up, it's about $139,000. But look, we know this is an artificial experiment because we don't charge. But what we do say is this thought experiment stands for the proposition that we deliver valuable services to the government of Marathon County, to the other cities, to the villages, to the townships, and to the residents of the county. So switching gears here, what we've been talking about so far is our operating budget and money that comes through our contract from Marathon County. So we will switch gears to a capital campaign that we have just had, and perhaps some of you saw the news last night. We held a news conference yesterday. We are completely flat out of space, and we have been planning for the last 3 years, and we have conducted a successful capital campaign entirely from private funds, no governmental funds from that at all. And so it is a two-phase major expansion and renovation project. Next year, construction will begin on the John and Carolyn Sonnentag Legacy Center, which will be a facility that will house our artifacts and probably about 90% of our archives. It will be a climate-controlled, secure, state-of-the-art fire suppression facility. It will have, I'm not sure what the term is, if it's wall hangings, but the exterior of the building will depict historic events in Marathon County. It's a 30,000 square foot facility. It will have a workshop because there's a lot of work that goes into putting up and taking down exhibits. There will be parking. There will be a stage room. There will be a 6,000 square foot legacy garden, which will anchor the downtown river walk that we have. Phase 2 will, after the artifacts and archives will have been relocated, we're going to have more space in the Woodson History Center. And so we will expand our important research genealogical library by 2,000 square feet. We will expand our exhibit space by 4,000 square feet. And this will be a state-of-art destination for people to come to. And again, segueing on what Dave Ekman said, we will be contributing to a vibrant downtown, and we're very excited about this project. We will have a new children's room. We'll have a new gift shop and more convenient restrooms. So we set a campaign goal for this project of $7.5 million. We have met and even exceeded that amount. We're working with Godorsey Construction as the design builder. Right now, our internal team is working hand in glove with Chuck's team to nail down those features that we must have, because this is a specialty building, the Legacy Center. And we feel, rightly, that we are the stewards of the history of Marathon County, and we think we're doing a pretty good job. And I believe that the committee, at least some or all of the committee, hopes to come over and visit us after your meeting concludes today. So we're looking forward to seeing you. Questions for either of us?
Questions or comments? No, I just want to thank you for your diligence in preserving our history for Marathon County, and it's exciting to have such young, talented staff taking over and coming from outside areas to join our community. That's really cool. So Thank you very much. No other questions or comments? Oh, you do. Supervisor Rosenberg.
Just one thing, if you're going to mail an invitation to a news conference, don't mail it here. I just picked it up.
Oh, jeez.
Good to know.
That's his department.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll see you afterwards. And where do we meet for our tour?
Right in the Woodson History Center, which is the building on the north side of Mackinac, directly across from the Yawkey House Museum. Best parking, I believe you can park in the Methodist Church parking lot, and also along Fulton Street are the best spots.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, then we will move on with 7C, an update from Marathon County Public Library, including our recent security services. Leah?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the EEEDC. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to give the opportunity to talk about what's been happening since we last met, and I was discussing the process of looking into security at the library. So that's the main thing I'm going to talk about today. If you haven't been following along, we've had a few very concerning security incidents at the library. Incidents have been increasing over the past several years. Along with, I don't know if you read the headlines about the stabbing at the Portage County Library, all was sort of the impetus for looking into security at the Wausau location. So I started to have initial conversations. County administration participated in that. So did county sheriffs and the City of Wausau Police. And we looked at all possible options from creating a job position to having reserve deputies. And ultimately, the best choice ended up being contract security. So we got bids and we chose the best security company that would meet our needs. That has been in place for just over 2 weeks now, so very early on, but I can tell you unequivocally it has been a 100% net positive at the library. The security has not only created massive support for our staff, who are equipped to de-escalate late fines and noisy phone calls, but more than that is challenging and not really what they are trained for and not what we are here to do. We are here to serve our community, to provide information, to provide access, and to provide programming to our community. When there is chaos, when there are incidents, when there are people not using the library for its intended purpose, that makes our ability to serve very difficult. So having a security guard, right now we have a 40-hour security guard, so 2 to 8 Monday through Thursday, and then 9 to 5 on Friday and Saturday. We thought we would start there. It's warm weather time, so our incidents aren't as high as they typically are in the very cold weather. But I also asked that the security have additional training beyond their standard security guard training in communications and public relations, because we want our security guards to be friendly, welcoming faces for everybody at the library, and they have definitely done that. In our observations, I saw somebody helping an elderly gentleman out to the car. They are there to help. They are there to make sure that everybody can enjoy library services, and it has been wonderful. The staff feels supported. The managers have significantly less crisis mitigation to deal with, and the patrons all feel like they're in an environment where they can enjoy library services. So it's been really, really wonderful. And like I said, typically when the weather is nice, we don't have as many incidents, but we have already had at least 2 crisis situations, one of which was a person indeterminate whether it was a mental health crisis or an addiction issue, but was severely agitated. And staff were trying to de-escalate, and the person was getting significantly louder, and it was frightening people in the surrounding area. And the security guard heard the noise, walked right over, and gently escorted the gentleman right out the building. So it didn't heighten any incidents. It was fantastic, and everybody was able to get back to their business. Another issue we had recently was an unfortunate stalker type of situation with an employee. There was a person that came into the library, was harassing a certain employee, and followed them home. So the next day, after a police report was filed, we gave the description to our security guard to keep an eye out for this person, and they identified them as soon as they walked in the door. We were able to call local law enforcement, issue a ban form, and the law enforcement gave them a talking to on appropriateness. So I would say that it's already been huge value add here at the library, and we're really, really pleased with the way that it goes, and it just allows everybody to do their work, and it's been really, really great. So happy to answer any additional questions about that. If I haven't covered everything, and since I have the mic, just a couple of other updates. As you may know, the big HVAC project is happening right now at the library. There's been a little bit of a hiccup, but I just think that's how big construction projects go. There's a soil quality issue over where they're putting in some equipment, and so they've moved to another area on the schedule, and they're reinforcing the third floor flooring for that equipment. So they're moving right along. They're waiting for engineers to find a solution for the current hiccup. Also, sadly, I don't mean to take a dark turn, but our elevator is dying. It isn't okay. We had an employee trapped in there, not too long, not like dehydration length, but it wasn't good. We also had the elevator go out of service suddenly, and we had a handicapped person on the second floor. And also, if you haven't been to the library lately, we have books. We have thousands of books, and we have more than one floor. And so the only way to get the books from the basement to the first floor and to the second floor is to take them up the elevator in a cart. So that's been happening. Chris Holman is certainly aware of our elevator issues. We had a great meeting about projects, and I know that there are other elevators that are on the to-do list at the county, but it's been kind of acute because hundreds of people use our library every day, and many of them are disabled. And also we need the elevator to do the books, which is like our main thing. Lastly, SLP, the Summer Library Program, is in full effect. We have a board meeting on Monday, and our packet, I believe, is already published. If you want to take a little peek inside a day of Summer Library Program at the library, there's a great little blurb from our library services manager right on the first page, I think, of the packet. On the director's report, just talking about all of the many varied programming and things that we do all the time, multiple times a week during the summer to keep kids engaged when they're not in school. So it's been super busy. It's been a wild ride. Always wonderful, wonderful things. You can always check our social media for like adorable photographs of the different programming that we do, and take a look at our website for upcoming events there. And with that, if anybody has any questions.
Great, thank you for that update, and I'm glad to hear that it's going well with the security officer and everyone's able to perform their job in a safe and happy atmosphere now. And it sounds like we're going to have a capital improvement request for an elevator. Is there anybody else that has any questions or comments? No? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Moving on to 7E, update on North Central Wisconsin Workforce Development Board.
Madam Chair, I think Mr. Ekman covered most of it. The only other thing that Chair Gibbs asked to, and it's in your packet, is because as Mr. Ekman referenced, every county in the state is in one of the various consortiums. Recently, all of the consortiums had to essentially, all the counties had to re-sign on. Chair Gibbs just asked that I pass along that Marathon County recently did that. And as part of that update from Mr. Ekman, again, the work of the Workforce Development Board, if you have a request for some specific education at a later date, he'd be happy to entertain, but he just wanted to make sure you were aware of our participation, our continued participation.
Okay, super. Then we're on to 7F, 2024 first quarter financial reports, budget to actual for departments of jurisdiction.
And I can take that one. You're actually going to get the second quarter very soon, probably at your next meeting or thereabouts, as soon as we have our next finance director on board. But it had been a request, a longstanding request to have financial reports. You, in fact, I believe have all of the financial reports from all of the county departments. The ones you're probably most interested in are the departments that generally appear before you and provide updates. And if you look on page 141, I know Leah just left the room, but you can see that the, excuse me, not 141 is the Marathon County Library. I will give you a couple of highlights. The form of all of these reports, this is one of the features of our new Enterprise Resource Planning Tool Workday. The great news, we're getting reports. We are finding some things we need to do a little bit differently, but generally speaking, the updates that the financial reports that we've given, the good news, they're not overly interesting. There's nothing that jumps out that is overly challenging or problematic. I have a couple of explanations. The best one probably to look at is relative to forecasting is expenditures and personnel. You'll see all of our departments are in that 20 to 23% area. Library is in that position. You'll see that actually with all of the budget expenditures and revenues. That's not surprising when you talk about a first quarter report. We're a quarter through the year, and there's a little bit of a lag for payroll, so it actually is probably above a quarter, but throughout the year we might have attrition and it might come back, it'll even out because there's a lag in cutting payroll checks. But overall, across the board, all of our departments were in that between 18 and 30% revenues and expenditures to budget for that first quarter. The reason for that fluctuation, we have some departments where their bills come in early in the year. My department's a good example of that. And we have some departments where the bills come in at the end of the year. Conversely, we have some revenues that come in early in the year and some revenues that come in late in the year. Again, talking about my department, you saw the Historical Society. They're one of those nonprofits that the county funds. The checks go out for those, for the work that they're going to do in the year, very early in the year. So I'm about 88% through that budget line item, and it's the first quarter of the year. But I don't expect to have to pay them twice because they know what they're getting paid, and it's a yearly contract. And again, some of our revenues come in differently. So you'll see on the library, there's nothing, at least from my perspective, that is overly concerning or overly insightful. If you're looking for more information relative to the library budget, certainly reach out to Leah. Their library board meetings have a little bit more detail relative to some of their budget areas, but this is the summary report. And similarly, with respect to UW Extension, a couple pages later, you'll see that, again, this is an area where their expenditures are different because their budget is different. They're a contract agency, and perhaps, Jeremy, if you want to elaborate on anything, we cut the checks for UW Extension at a different time. It's part of the contract that we have on an annual basis. Our county, like many counties, we have fewer direct county staff that work in Extension. We used to have 2 office staff. We no longer have 2 office staff that are county employees. All of the staff that are covered by, that deliver services for UW Extension are UW Extension staff. So I don't know, Jeremy, if you have anything on your budget you want to highlight, but nothing in my mind is surprising because it all washes out in the end of the year with Extension.
Yeah, exactly. I will just note we invoice 2 times a year, so the the 6-month update, you'll see that first invoice on there. But that's why, as Lance noted, the amount spent so far is so small because that invoice comes in a little bit later. But yeah, this is about where I would expect it to be given those expenses, as Lance said. Perfect.
So if you do have questions, please let me know. I'll go back to the library just for one thing to show that something that we're learning. When I talked about areas through Workday that we need to kind of remap in previous meetings, like you'll look at this one. Wow, we're 238% through our budgeted line item. That was a mapping issue relative to an employee benefit. You'll see every department has got the same sort of issue quite honestly, other than UW Extension. It's a very small dollar amount. It's not concerning, but you won't see that next year because we'll map it the right way. But overall, again, the financials themselves, I think that was a question that came out at HR Finance. Why is that like that? Short answer, we'll map it better next year. But if you do have questions, let me know. If I don't have the answer, I will certainly get them for you next time.
Any questions? No? I just have a question, and this is general because we have to stay on topic of our committee. But just reviewing all these, there were a couple different departments where the 278 or whatever it says percent, that's nothing. We got 17,225.54%. So or like 35,259.4%. Do you have any idea what those, where they need to be mapped? Like one is page 133, county treasurer, other taxes, 41,830, other taxes, miscellaneous revenues, the sheriff's capital outlay, 1,999.12%. So
that one we talked about at HR Finance. The sheriff's office one was a mapping issue with respect to what is called the jail assessment fund. It's funds that are taken in for the benefits and have to be expended for the benefits of inmates. But happy to look at all of those. If they're all the same line, if it's that same, was it the same line that you were?
no, they're all in different departments.
But they're
I
in
just-
different departments, but the same, is it the same employee benefit?
Well, some are employee benefits, some are capital outlay, some is repair and maintenance. Those were the ones that were like, woo!
Yeah, I can talk to you after. A lot of that is mapping. So capital outlay is, like if you look at in my department right now, I have 0% of my capital outlay spent, and it's a $40,000 annual line item. That's for courthouse small capital projects. So if people need a office redone that hasn't been touched in 10 years and the incumbent leaves, we take advantage of that and we go in and do that. Or if I need a new computer or office chair in a department. The other pieces of some of the mapping issues is we are allowed, if you look kind of in some of these areas, the county budget is done by kind of cost centers or within a department, there's various, for lack of a better term, buckets. So you'll have a personnel bucket, you'll have a contractual services bucket, and you see materials and supplies. We really what I look at is not so much whether an office supply line is dramatically below or perhaps even above what the expenditure. I look at the higher level line, like, hey, did we code something inappropriately, but the overall area is still within what the budget parameter is? And then next year, it's an educational piece about making sure we code it right. So happy to look at those after the meeting. And if I don't know the answer, I'll certainly find it for you. And anyone, if you have any of those areas, please let me know. I had one of those in my department where we had historically coded something one way, and through Workday, it got rerouted. So I have one area where a line is going to be over slightly, but it's going to be under in another, which is from a financial and accounting standpoint, not a problem. It's just, let's make sure next year we code them appropriately and forecast appropriately.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Supervisor Lammer.
Thank you. I might have mentioned this at the HRFP meeting, but is it possible to get a comparable to last year on these reports?
a comparable to the 20, have
Like
the
the
20,
prior year.
the prior year, sorry, just want to make sure I understand. Like a prior year, what we spent budget to actual prior year, so 23, were we at the same point? I'll look into that. I don't know because Workday, the process of pushing over this first year has been very, very, I can't tell you how difficult it has been. Jeremy's laughing. Next year will be better. So I'll look into whether or not we can have how does it compare, kind of like the sales tax report yesterday, to see, I'll look into that. I don't want to promise something that I can't give, but I'll certainly look at that.
Anyone else? No? Okay, we will move on back up on the agenda to item 5A, discussion regarding 2025 annual budget development and policy recommendations from the committee, including review of the mandatory discretionary program document and discussion of rates and fees. So just a broad overview, Administrator Leonard has explained in other committee meetings that these documents will help us identify opportunities to exercise our policy-making authority as a board. And they outline 3 key points. 1, what services we offer. 2, what level of service. And 3, at what cost, meaning the fees we apply. So I will turn it over to him to continue the discussion.
I think you've teed that up very well. I don't know what else to add other than if you want additional explanation, but those are the 3 areas, and with our new, kind of the new approach we implemented last year with the budget building, and Chair Robinson is here as well to answer any questions, but we try to give you information to help you navigate those 3 policy questions early in the budget process so you have more opportunity to shape it. What programs or services do we deliver? The mandatory discretionary program list gives you that information at very high level. If you have questions about hey, what is this program, why is it mandatory, or why is it discretionary, happy to get you that additional information. I'm not going to go through that 50-page document unless you want me to. But it stems from that idea that, again, we're an arm of the state. We can do what the state says we can do, or we have to do what the state says we have to do. We can't do the things they tell us that they don't give us permission to do. So that's the first question. The second question that Chair Marash referenced, which is at what level of service, that stems from the idea that, well, the state might tell us what we have to do. They don't always say how well or to what level we have to do it. So 3 kind of areas where you might look at if you have a service level desire to make some changes. Something as simple as a target population. How many people do you want to serve? Or in the area of, I know Leah just left, but in the area of libraries. Marathon County made a choice. The county board did a great number of years ago. You want a county consolidated library system, and you want to have branches strategically located, quite a number of branches, throughout the county. You could have said you didn't want to do a county consolidated system, or you'll do a county consolidated system but only have 1 or 2 branches. You made a policy decision to go in a different way. Service level. Another one, quality might be an actual, like a PACER rating. I talked about it at the infrastructure committee. The county board through the infrastructure committee has said, we want to maintain our roads, our roadway system, to have an average pavement rating of 7. You could have said 6. You could have said 8. You said 7. And lastly, I'll say time to turnaround items. Leah left from the library. You have a very good library system with a lot of books. You could have relied upon a different delivery method where maybe people had to request an item and it takes several weeks to get it. Another one, permits at conservation planning and zoning. You made a choice as a county to have county zoning, and our permits are reviewed in a pretty timely fashion. You could have had you can give us a target of 14 days, 21 days, 40 days. But those are, again, some clarifying questions. If when you look at that program list and you see, all right, what's our service level in a particular area? What might it look like to increase it or decrease it? I think those parameters can be insightful. And then last, as Chair Marash rightly said, is at what cost? You can have a system where we deliver services, particularly on those areas where the state hasn't set what the fees are going to be. There's a lot of areas where they have. But we do have some opportunities to charge costs for programs. I gave the example earlier today, I believe it was today, or certainly earlier this week, about Parks, Rec, and Forestry. We have a campground that's not a requirement. We have a couple of campgrounds. It's not a requirement that you have campgrounds. And so it's a discretionary decision. The board then made the decision, we want to allow these services, and you set a fee schedule to do that. The Parks Commission looks at that at a regular basis and has incrementally increased fees to have some cost recovery. You can change that. The county board can say, what do we want those to be? And in fact, the HR Finance and Property Committee yesterday adopted, or I should say recommended for the board's consideration, budget assumptions that essentially call for that conversation about fees to continue with, presumption is perhaps too strong of a word, but a consideration that we look at increasing those fees 3% at least as a discussion point. You don't have to, and there might be some fees that you say stay the same, and others might increase more than that. A good example is solid waste. We just undertook a fee evaluation. We had some outside assistance with that, and we're going to be bringing forward some recommendations relative to those fees to cover our costs. So those are the three areas. If you do have a particular program that, hey, I want to know more about, we can bring the department head in to talk about that. Again, your committee is a little bit unique in that you have the library, which has its own independent library board, which is going to make a budget request to you. But if you want to give them some direction to help, hey, this is the thing the county board is looking for from the library. Maybe it's something about service level of quality. Maybe you want, hey, what might it look like to expand hours, or what might it look like to do something else? Leah can bring that back. Similarly, you have, again, it's a little bit unique. You have McDevco that you fund. You have the Historical Society that has come before you. If you want to have conversations about those programs in greater detail, happy to get that information for you. But other than that, Madam Chair, I would, if HR Finance and Property Committee Chair Robinson has anything else to add.
I thought we'd be up first. But it's been an interesting meeting. I think what we're looking for is just input. You know, this process started last year in response to concerns that were raised by the members of the board relative to inclusion in the budget 2 budgets ago. And so it is an effort to engage the committees in the trying to set the priorities and levels of service and help with the generation of the fees necessary to run the county. So it's an iterative process, and you know, between now and the adoption of the budget, we look for your input. But I think the administrator laid out, you know, the library, UW Extension, McDevco, and the Historical Society. Are you comfortable with those levels of service? What are your thoughts relative to those from a policy perspective? Should the funding of the nonprofits be continued, and at what level, and what are our expectations out of them? But it's an iterative process. I'll try to make your meetings between now and the adoption of the budget to be able to convey that information back to the committee. But it'll go into the administrator's draft of the budget, and then ultimately the final county board approval of that budget.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? No? Sorry for putting you later than you intended. Okay, moving on to 6, operational functions required by statute, ordinance, resolution, or policy. B, discussion and possible action to forward to county board for consideration. 1, consideration of budget amendment to allocate up to $50,000 in American Rescue Plan Act funds for participation in 2024 Uniquely Wisconsin program. So we had previously, as a board, when I wasn't on it yet, allocated, I believe it was $60,000 previously to go towards this campaign. And successfully we brought in a video with an Emmy and attracted people to our county, which was great, and it even came in under budget. So we were able to turn back some money from ARPA, correct, Administrator Leonard? So we have to decide if we want to continue with this or not. So Administrator Leonard, I'll let you continue, please.
Perfectly teed up again. So the reason I'll start with the budget amount is $50,000. The program itself, and in the packet, it talks about $60,000. That is actually the cost. We partnered with the Convention and Visitors Bureau and worked with them on the process that Chairman Rash referenced about selecting those videos and kind of bringing that information to Discover Wisconsin. And part of that partnership was, hey, if you're going to be at the table with us to talk about what we should do, you should kick in $10,000. They were happy to do so. Previously, I reached out to the director, Tim White, and he would love to partner again in the same fashion to do it, to participate in this next round. Really, the reason we teed it up this way for a budget amendment, or you can certainly talk about it as you talk about the 2025 annual budget, is if you wanted to participate for the next round of shooting, they're going to begin doing that relatively soon. We could do a budget amendment this year to get that process started. If you'd rather wait, we can do that too, I believe, and kind of be in a later shooting schedule. But wanted to be very upfront with you. I think, there is American Rescue Plan Act funds, and that was kind of the suggestion to use that again to encumber those. I reported at HR Finance yesterday, and I'm going to work with our new finance director when she starts in 11 days. To really finalize get a better handle of what we still have left, but it's substantial. You got about $26.3 million in ARPA funds were originally allocated to you, and I think you have, you're probably in about the $2 million mark still available, which is a good place to be because you have some, wrap up some other capital projects still, but $50,000 we could allocate, cut that check yet this year and expend those funds for something we know is ARPA eligible. So again, we reached out to Discover Wisconsin. They can get us in. We reached out to the Visitors Bureau. They're happy to partner again. The question is really one from this committee. If you wanted to do it this year, my thought is you could frame up a motion to recommend to the HR Finance and Property Committee that it consider forwarding a budget amendment to utilize American Rescue Plan Act funds for participation in the program yet this year. Or if you'd rather wait and do it in 25, you can provide me with that direction. Or if you'd rather not do it at all, you can do that too.
What say ye, committee?
I'd make a motion to advance it to the HR Property and Finance Committee. That's the direction it goes from here.
Okay, motion made by Supervisor Rosenberg and seconded by Supervisor Ungerer. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Thank you. And I just want to make sure I understand that correctly. You want to do it for this year?
I do.
Okay.
With ARPA funds, $50,000, as it's described.
And the second, that was the deal, and everyone else. Perfect. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Okay. Such a decisive bunch. I like that. All right. I think we're down to 8 as we jumped around all over the place. So if I'm wrong, someone can correct me. 8, next meeting date and time would be Thursday, August 1st, 2024 at 3 p.m. And committee members are asked to bring ideas for future discussion. And then we're down to 9. Do I have a motion for adjournment? Oh, do you have something? I'm sorry, Supervisor Seifelt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next meeting, I will not be in attendance because it is the Wisconsin Valley Fair, and I'm supposed to be out there most of the time, so.
Okay, well, enjoy. Okay, so we had adjournment, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Oh, sorry, we need a second for adjournment. Okay, Hagan, a second for adjournment. Thank you, and we'll see you hopefully at the Historical Society.